what would invariably surely turn into another hour.
Yes.
And be even weirder with that guy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I've come in not only to have a pee, but to use the shower, take a dump, and then leave him with it.
And throw my key at you.
Yeah. You were meant to be a girl.
At least the lady boy.
Yeah. Or something close enough. Right. So, sitting on the plane, there's a delay.
Oh, no!
And the words from the captain were, ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting. Well, there's with one passenger. What does that mean? What? Didn't catch that bit? Something? I'm not going to inquire, make a scene. I just have to sweat it out. But eventually, the even more satisfying sound of the sealing of the aircraft door and the thwump.
Wow.
And the plane takes off.
Wow.
Before the next set of fears and questions comes to mind. I've got now an opportunity, Shaun, to have a good look at this passport and see what it's made of. Nope. Wrong stitching. Yeah, can't tell with the ultraviolet. Is it there or is it not? It has to be. Yeah, they'll certainly do that. Picture looks dodgy. Kind of see a wrinkle in the paper where they've peeled it off. Yeah, you have to. That's the only one I got. So I arrive at Singapore.
Let me ask you this though first. So what are the consequences of those things you just described when you arrive at Singapore? Could they potentially say this is fake and send you back?
Well, the first thing they'd say is suspicions that the passport's wrong.
Yeah.
And then, could you wait here while we check it?
Yeah.
That wouldn't go well. So they'd come back and say, well, what flight was he on? The one from Bangkok. Kindly explain. Well, I'm stuck there, kindly explaining, and I haven't got another one to use, or a nationality that I can claim, which will do me any good.
Yeah.
I've found over the years that the British do something that very few other countries will do in a hurry. They're quite happy to issue you with a passport under any circumstances, even if you're on the run or whatever. I've known a few people to crawl their way in there. But on the bad side, they don't want to know you and won't help you in any other way. There are individual exceptions to that. When we find ourselves eventually in Karachi, there's one or two embassy people there that were helpful. But so I've got an hour flight to worry about all that. But again, it's really, I think, down to, the ultraviolet impressions. There's to be two sets. On a British passport, at that time, there were a green background ultraviolet reactive ink that shows up over the main pages, and around the edge of the photograph, little pink crowns that go over both sides of the edge, so that was two different kinds of inks that would be needed to make that convincing. And I hand it over, and I'm looking at, there's the door of freedom. There's not even anybody on at customs. That's it. I can see it. Bright day, nice day. Guy looking. Why is he still looking at that? He doesn't like the photo. It's a bit grainy. It's not the kind of photo anybody would happily use, a second generation picture. But I see his hand in slow motion go into the ultraviolet scanner.
Oh.
And as it hits the tip, I don't see anything.
Oh.
But as it goes on, it glows in the glorious pink and green of freedom. Good enough for me, he seems to say. It might be a complete phony, but good enough for Singapore. You must have some money on you somewhere. Welcome, welcome. They've got the biggest value denomination note of any country in the world. They have a single note of 10,000 Singapore dollars.
That must come in handy for drug deals.
£5,000.
Wow.
I don't think you'd like to throw that across the counter at Starbucks. But, and it's kind of biggish looking. But it shows faith in the world economy, doesn't it? Have you noticed people in this country very much against large denomination notes. They've been dancing around getting 100 out for years and never done it.
Well, the US federal government, it's a money laundering issue for them to keep it low, isn't it?
Yes, they haven't issued the $1,000 note for, I think, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
They're still around, but they're never withdrawn exactly.
Yeah.
I think there's even 400 or so $10,000 notes still in private hands. Anyway, there it is. I'm in the Singapore sunshine.
What's the first thing you do?
Get a taxi. Get away from the airport.
So are you able to access more money now through the ATM?
No. I'm trying to remember how I got around that. I did, actually, yes. But it seemed because I was in a different country that the dud one still didn't work, but the one that gave me 500 definitely gave me more money there.
So where's that money coming from at this point?
This money's coming from a friend of mine in Australia who's given it back to other friends and has come to me. Wow. You know, that one of the few who were left saying, oh, no, he'll figure something out. I'm sure he will. It wasn't that. I guess they just didn't want to. You can imagine if it was a friend of yours and the hat had been passed around and you didn't put in 50 or whatever, and then you heard later on he died on the wall for want of a nail. Some bastard didn't put in, did it? You know, it was still coming. And, of course, later on, it kind of flooded in. Once people, scallywag
once they knew you were at large.
It made the Australian papers and some other ones around the world.
They escaped it.
I only had to ask, and money poured in.
Yeah.
Just one person gave me 20,000. No, give it back to me whenever.
You're like a hero now in the criminal community.
It's amongst that world, yes. Facing death and got out of it. It's the ultimate courtroom win, you know. Acquittal by other means, as a friend used to say. I acquitted myself. So I get in a taxi, go to the central town, break that connection, walk around a bit, pick out a hotel from one of the directories. Nothing too flash, nothing too you know those hotels that are slightly on the fringes of the urban inner, that are never hugely busy, but they're used by traveling salesmen, businesses, things for conferences. Good, but not flash, not ambitious people in there. Check in there. I was on my way to the room, and I stopped at the gift shop, bought a pair of swimming trunks and a towel. Went into the room, slung my bag in there, changed into the swimsuit, went to the rooftop where the swimming pool was, and stood at the edge thinking, well, I've avoided Marsbar Creek and the Great Moat. I think I owe God a swim somewhere. So I dived in one end, stayed right underneath, touching the underneath of the pool. It was deserted, by the way. Got to the other end, it wasn't a very big pool, and then hauled myself up, dripping with luxurious cool water and some Malaccan Straits wind pouring in. Turned around to look at the pool and thought, well, you have to dive in sometime. And that was it. I thought. And until I spent I thought I should have been completely exhausted. I should have slept like a baby. But I didn't. And at first my friends and supporters didn't believe I was out. Then the only secure way I had of communicating with them had been tightened up because of the flood of con artists who'd approached them. Everybody and their dog had come up with, some plan to get me out, or from the Asian side, people had come in and said to Max, my friend and one-time accountant, and everybody had been approached with, I know somebody in high places, their names would astound you. I know people in low places, their abilities are astonishing. All that sort of crap. And they'd drawn a line that they were not paying for any more of that. I'd not said a word about this thing. I would have liked to say, the try is on, so be prepared. No, I was sticking to the Crook's Book of Rules like it was chiseled on, gold plates from, what are those people in Omaha? No, Utah. Mormons,
The
isn't
Mormon
it?
book of...
Yes,
Yeah.
their book was supposedly found on gold plates.
Joseph Adams, was it?
Yes, a bit recent. I like my religions to be a little older than that. At least 1,000 years or so. Make it 2.
No Scientology then?
I think if L. Ron Hubbard were alive today, he'd admit that, look, it was a joke. It was, it was a novel. This was not meant to be true. I mean, it was, I think. He was writing fiction there. Well, he has to write fiction because the CIA and everybody else won't let. Okay. CIA can't keep a secret anyway. Look what happened to Howard Hughes's submarine adventures. He only did that fishing for that downed Russian sub on the proviso that the story never leak. He sent a oil exploration ship to go look for it. Somebody blabbed. No wonder he ended up wearing Kleenex boxes on his feet in some Bahamas hotel, a long beard. He was strange anyway. So nobody believed that I was out until they read it in the papers for themselves. And then they followed the protocol, which was you go to the Ace print shop down in this street, and not everybody had a fax machine in those days, and they're gone altogether now, aren't they? But so you could use a local printing office to collect your faxes. So that was what I'd do. I'd send a fax to this one, which would eventually end up in Michael's hands, and they all knew that it was fine. So but I realized too, it's astonishing how quickly you not shrug off, but put behind you very difficult and awkward things, because I certainly did. I realized that in very short time, it could all still go bad. I've got one passport, it's not very good, and the name of that passport could be worked out without extraordinary difficulty. Okay, it wouldn't be found if I'd stayed in the country. Instead, possibly 3 or 4 other Westerners using fake passports that day would have been swept out. Because it does reveal a lot. You know that as we speak, 45,000 people around the world are traveling this day on falsified documents.
Wow.
Passports issued by governments. So it's a labor-intensive way of chasing somebody that way. I had to get out of Singapore and then leave for somewhere. I hadn't really thought that far, honestly, because, I don't know, it felt like it was a kind of curse on the whole plan to be. It's a bit like buying a lottery ticket and then thinking what you'll do with the money. You're not going to win. It's the lottery ticket you lost down the back of the sofa that is the one you win, that you never even gave a second thought to. That is the only chance of the one you're going to win. So planning, I was in relative safety. I was in a place that I could communicate and get money. And, of course, the very first thing I asked for was fresh passports.
This is still in Singapore?
Still in Singapore. And the next day I saw the article in the Straits Times that, just a small piece, column 5, Daniel Westlake escapes from a Thai prison, from Bangkok Central Jail. And that's not very big. That's not much. I contacted some friends in London and sent off some messages to the Australian and the British embassy. And that lawyer who was in Bangkok, the American who was the de facto bug listening device of the DEA. I knew anything I told him in confidence would go straight back to... So the point of these communications was just to dissemble, to make them believe I was somewhere else. So I think the Australians made it look like this message came from France somewhere and the one to the British. I think the Australians, for their hospitality during their Easter week meal, I think I mentioned, haven't I, that the embassies used to put on a bit of a feast for the inmates, no matter how sickly and dying they were. And the Australians did quite a bit with their families who used to come in as well. They'd set up a picnic table. As you'd expect, the French put on the best eating. Americans did a good one for Thanksgiving. A lot of whining going on there, but mostly by the staff between each other, if they found it uncomfortable.
With you being world headline news at this point, and imagine these articles have got your picture on them, are you now tempted to change your appearance?
Not really. I think perhaps were we talking about it some time ago? Being wanted, it is never good to run to an isolated spot. Perhaps some people attempted to go to a caravan park in Wales or check into a flea bag in Paddington. They'd probably be okay in London, but the reality is you have to behave. Your best defense is to behave out of character with somebody who's on the run. You can check into a reasonable hotel, mostly by having the booking go ahead. Doesn't matter if you've done it 10 minutes ago, as long as it's already there when you walk into reception. People are kind of programmed to expect certain things from people on the run. They might go into a hotel, but there'll be no booking, and they'll say, can I have a room with no windows? Or have you got anything with a ladder out of the bathroom? Or I don't know what. But I've been places where witnesses to something, I've discussed a story in the paper with them, and they have no memory that people around me were actually part of it, or the photograph of being... Nobody much looks like the picture. I suppose, look, for you to... The obvious thing that would change your appearance in a second, your style these days, is the smooth look, if I can put it like that.
Getting a wig.
Yeah, you get a rug and
Elton John style.
A bit of a moustache. And
get a Pablo.
At the risk of looking like a 70s copper, that'd be all that's required.
Do you think I'd suit a Pablo Escobar moustache or a Hitler?
You do a great Hitler, I bet. Oh no, that'll be a guess at parties.
We're gonna get the video deleted off YouTube now. It's like the dog, isn't it? The saluting.
And you a guy in Wandsworth who had grown this fulsome beard, and he finally decided to shave it one day, and he left the Hitler one day.
Oh God!
But he had such a face. I was cracking up every time he turned around. It was hi Wayne, if you're out there.
Well, when Escobar was dead, they shaved the Hitler moustache on him and took photos of his corpse with the Hitler moustache.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't suppose he would have minded the comparison terribly much. And as for desecrating corpses go, that's pretty mild treatment, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, if they'd put a broomstick up his bum or something like that and dumped a wig on that one, then you'd have a cause for complaint.
So if I'm on the run, I should just keep my head smooth. Is that what you're saying? Don't.
No, I think you'd because it is a memorable feature in that sense, and is part of a certain face shape. But that's the good thing. It would only take that wig to alter the shape of your face, and that would do it. That would be enough.
So you're saying that you just fit into the background? You're not standing out in any way, really?
Or if I see somebody, I engage them in a moment's conversation, as one does with somebody in a shop or where there's some services to do with travel. And if I take the right approach, within 30 seconds, I'm talking to them as part of somebody who's part of their world. The escaped villain is not part of their world. But if I'm talking to, I don't know, just somebody at a travel agency, for example, not that they exist anymore, but at an airline counter, I'd be saying, oh, you've got the Cisco systems in. They drive me mad at the office. That is enough of a line to lift you out of, your picture could be there. And once you put yourself as a wage slave too, there's the end of that.
So it's not just physical appearance; it's adjusting people's minds, isn't it? Through what you say.
Very much so. I arrived back in Australia once with a load. And it was early days, so I still had some, and there were 2 couriers. And they were looking to me for directives, because I'd go first to pick the immigration man as to who would be best. And this was done by experience and on some basis. So I picked one because I knew he'd be fine on the day. And that is very much connected with what we were talking about before, where you fit in. In front of me, there were probably half a dozen minor-level politicians and upper-level bureaucrats. They weren't standing there in front of this guy having to wait their turn one by one, because this is a man who assesses your customs treatment. You give him your customs form. He sees where you've been and then dictates what sort of treatment you're going to get, searched or not. So this guy at immigration had the little runaround fixer for this group of hacks and politicians, force all these passports on him, run it through. No, don't look them up, just stamp them through. Be bullied into it. So that when I arrive, you know what my attitude is then. Mate, and to think we pay taxes for those bludgers. That was it. Yeah. Yeah, you got anything? Oh, fuck no, foreign do I? Bloody good to be home. Beer up. And that's it. I sailed through and I signalled the other guys to come through because I was on an Australian passport, so I adjusted my accent and manner. But I took his side against his enemy, and that made me all right.
Yeah.
I could do no wrong. Yeah. And I think if people who are nervously wanted just don't take that obvious step to they think blending in means dressing in a certain way or not doing things to stand out. But you stand out if you're not part of something, if you're not part of a group. If you see something in a field that you know something about, if you come across some tech nerds and you know something about that, good. If you're wandering past an art gallery, dig around for a roll neck jumper and give yourself bad ear hair somehow, and go straight in, shaking your head at every picture you see.
A cravat.
Derivative. You will be part of that art crowd, and even if you are a loner, that fits in rather well with that lot of sad sacks anyway, doesn't it? So I don't mean you, Oliver. It's an artist friend of mine that
I guess some art crowd trolls now.
No, he does. He does some quite good stuff.
So how long
Oliver
are you in
McMillan.
Singapore?
As little time as possible. As I said, I didn't sleep very well that night.
Okay.
It's funny. I ate what I thought was good food at the restaurant there. Gave me the runs. I was so used to my French cook that I was eating poorly in the real world compared to the hellhole at Bangkok, where, Noel would be down with a supply truck and cart, which they used as a death transport in the afternoons for the injured. But anyway, that was hosed down, so there was no problems for the next day. And he'd be arguing over the quality of the meat and the fish and saying, "Oh, David, I don't think that tonight's on." Yes, just use your own judgment. We didn't have a sommelier for the wine, but still, I've never been a drinker. No, it took me a while to adjust just my physical self into that world, and it was only the next night that I was kind of sleep caught up with me. But I went to a travel agent to find a place that had handwritten tickets. I didn't want to be on the airline's computers under the dodgy name of the passport I'd used. I couldn't use the one I'd been sent by express courier because it had no entry stamp into Singapore. So I'm stuck with this iffy one. But how can I not leave a trail on the computers before I get on? Only don't buy the ticket from the airline. Buy it from an agent who, what's that word for it? It means collating it. The word they use where a whole lot of little travel agencies used to go to a consolidator, yes. They used to get all the tickets for lots of airlines. They'd get them at a discount. That long-gone business of being a travel agent and tickets used to work like that. So I went to a really hokey place and I sat down and I thought, yeah, this looks like it's for me. There was little tattered flags and a faded Chinese calendar on the wall and tacky knickknacks on his desk. Clearly a one-man operation, except for his auntie or something. Came in Tuesdays. And he was a wreck. Layers of fat under his chin and whiskers and bitten fingernails. Yes? Pleased to meet you. You're my man. Name, as I'm keeping the passport away from him. So he's written the ticket out using my middle name as the last name, Charles. So I know that if that gets entered in anywhere, they won't have any advance notice about it, at least that. It was Pakistan International Air. Where was I going? I was heading for as deep and lost as I could imagine. And that takes me back, wow, 2 podcasts ago, and back to the Afghanistan-Pakistan border in Baluchistan, where I'd met Mir Nurjan Magsi, tribal lord. And it was into his hands that I was delivering myself and safety.
You think the story is just ending? It is just beginning.
Yes.
You must be exhausted, David.
Well, things did get more difficult. And
do you have time to answer any of these questions that have come in?
Yeah.
So that's where we're going in the next podcast. We're going to the Badlands of Pakistan, Afghanistan, torture in Karachi. And if you've enjoyed this series so far, in the description box below this video, please support David by clicking over to his YouTube channel and subbing, and clicking over to Amazon. If you have bought his book so far, we would really appreciate you leaving some Amazon reviews. We've got Escape and Unforgiving Destiny. I've read them both. Excellent.
I might say that the new book, Unforgiving Destiny, does kind of cover everything. It's probably a better place to start than Escape, which is kind of narrowly focused in that way.
If you want the broad picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, somebody contacted me when you're looking at questions, asked for a signed copy.
Yeah.
So I directed him to my davidmcmillan.net site. Okay. There's a contact page. Good. So I'm quite happy to sign a copy and send it if somebody wants one.
Yeah, they've just got to PayPal you the cost and the postage.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's